Okay, I think we're going to hop right in because we have a lot to cover, a lot in this session. So you guys know over the last few lunch and learns, we've been talking a lot about content. We know by now that sharing posts on your network is vital to powering your social selling strategy. So, in previous conversations, we've talked about brand content, industry content, and then putting that personal spin in there. So today we're going to zoom in on industry content, which plays a very important role in helping you show up as a thought leader and educating your followers. So we're going to talk about all of the trends and which industry content is getting the most engagement across our entire customer base, what those posts look like, and how you guys can apply it to your social strategy. And then lastly, we'll talk about how industry content is streamed straight into the Denim social platform through our integration with UpContent. So before we get started and introduce our special guests, let's go through our normal housekeeping items here. So again, we're going to be sending this out to everybody after the call within the next day or so. We'll include the recording and the deck so that you can share it out with your teams. And then if you have any questions throughout the lunch and learn, feel free to put them in the chat or the Q&A box, and we'll get to them as soon as we can. All right, so let's get started. Let's meet our special guest. But first, you get to meet me if you don't already know me. My name is Taylor Hanson. I am the Director of Customer Experience here at Denim Social. I work with hundreds of social sellers across the industry. I work with a lot of our large customers and help them power their social selling programs. So first off, let's meet Scott. If you don't know Scott.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks, Taylor. Excited for this conversation. I'm Scott with UpContent. As Taylor mentioned, we are partners with Denim Social, particularly on the content curation side, and we'll talk about what that means toward the end tactically, but excited to dig in today about some of the data trends that we've been seeing, and Taylor and I and the rest of the team have been discussing, and are excited to bring that to you to help inform your strategy going into the close of this year or the beginning of next year.
Awesome. Thanks so much for being here, Scott. We have Tiffany as well. Tiffany, can you introduce yourself, please?
Hi, everyone. I'm Tiffany Van Zant, and I'm the social media manager at BOK Financial. I oversee both our brand social channels that we use, and I also kind of oversee our mortgage division. Our mortgage bankers are also in social media, and so I give support to them as well.
Thanks, Tiffany. I work specifically with Tiffany, so I see the awesome things that they do with their social selling program. So I'm super excited for both Scott and Tiffany to share some of these awesome insights with you all today. So let's kick it off. Scott has pulled together some awesome insights from content trends across our entire customer base. So Scott, kick us off. What are we seeing these days?
Yeah, so excited to dig into each of these in particular, but I think you mentioned something important there, Taylor. These insights are coming from the Denim social customer base. So this isn't something that's kind of esoteric, that, oh, it's a bunch of people and I don't know if they're really like me or not like me. Is it my right industry? This is something that we've dug through all the data together and extracted these 3 insights amongst a number of insights that we think are going to be most valuable as you think about how you want to approach your content mix going forward. So the first one, I think, is one that we've heard a lot about, and it's nice to be able to put some data next to it now as well around financial wellness content. And we have a whole slide, and we're going to dig into what that really means and how that looks. But there's 2 main metrics that we tend to look at as it relates to, does the content work? And one of them, which is where financial wellness has really shown, is average number of clicks per article. So on a per article basis, how effective is that article in driving engagement? How interesting is it to the audience? Comparing the first quarter of the year to the second quarter of the year, clicks in financial wellness went up nearly 10%, which is a pretty big jump because financial wellness wasn't coming from zero. So we've seen an increasing focus on financial wellness content. We've also seen increased diversity, which is the other key metric that we tend to follow around real estate and mortgage content. So not the same article being shared by everyone. One of the important elements, I'm sure, of the strategies that Taylor and team recommend is diversity of the content that's available to the team as well. And we've seen that really shine through as it relates to real estate content. There's a lot going on and had been a lot going on in the second quarter as it relates to real estate and certainly mortgage as well. And we'll get into a little bit more about what that means in a moment. But also saw an interest for all of our banking friends. Banking content as well grew about 36% in the clicks per article shared. So super engaging content. Everyone wants to learn more, better educate themselves around what's happening in banking. And we have some examples to show as well. But I think overall, after going through all the data, looking at all the insights, to us mutually, these three main thrusts really shown through. We have a few other little tidbits toward the end, but I think these were the ones that if we were recreating our content strategy, these would be areas that we'd pay attention to.
Yeah, these are huge. And it's kind of not surprising when you look at the state of the industry right now too, right? Financial wellness, obviously a priority for everybody. Tiffany, interesting to hear your perspective. You know, I know BOK does a really good job teeing up BOK content, but you guys also do a really good job of teeing up industry content and third-party content for all of your MLOs. So can you give us some insight into you guys' strategy at BOK when it comes to sharing this industry content?
Sure. So we actually utilize regional admins in each of our markets. They post on behalf of our sales team members. You know, some of them aren't as comfortable using social media, or they just struggle to find the time to schedule the post. But they realize the importance of still being visible on social media. So the regional admins have really taken the lead on working with them on what kind of content do they want to share with their audience, and then finding those articles and posting on their behalf. You know, and we've also set up some custom content folders for each of our markets where they can get content specific to their local market, as well as folders for more like mortgage specific and realtor specific content. And we did that by, you know, we worked with our sales team and asked them, well, what topics are most important to you that you think your audience would want to see? And for both consumers and their real estate partners that they work with. And then we kind of built the folders from there.
Love it. So you guys are right on trend with what you're sharing, right? You guys really focus on educating in addition to connecting locally. Awesome.
Absolutely.
Love that. Cool. Well, I think let's show some examples of what these trends actually look like. Again, financial wellness has been super popular with all the craziness going on in the world. Our social sellers love to share it. Audiences love it, obviously, because the data reflects that, you know, it's growing. Scott, walk us through some more details on this.
Yeah, again, this is so great because we've been pounding the table on financial wellness, I'd say, for the last probably 2 quarters or so about how important it's going to be. We started to see those green shoots, and now we're really starting to see the data prove that out as well. And so as we dig in a little bit, we shared that lead in the beginning of that 10% growth in the average number of clicks per article shared. You'll see a bit more detail here. So going from a little over 14 clicks to almost 16 clicks per article. Yeah, 10%, that's great. But I think the other real wow factor is that that's nearly double the average of everything else, right? So if you can only share one piece of content and you really want to see continued engagement, I'm not recommending that we throw content mix out the window, but if you don't have financial wellness as part of your content mix, that may be a nice accelerant to your engagement and sparking new conversations and relationships digitally. The other interesting aspect, not only the growth in kind of the efficacy of each of the articles, was the diversity as well. We also saw a 7% growth in the total volume or diversity of financial wellness content being shared. So it wasn't just driven by everybody sharing the same article. There was a lot of different approaches, different perspectives as it related to financial wellness. And we saw growth there also. So the fact that we saw growth in efficacy and growth in diversity really meant that financial wellness was the kind of #1 trend we saw in Q2. Below that initial box, you'll see just 2 examples. These were the kind of top 2, again, of the Denim social ecosystem over that last quarter. Articles around what your parents never taught you about money, or 3 painful, obvious mistakes that are 401k killers. That really educational, financial literacy based content is what we saw all the way through the set of content that was being shared in this category.
Yeah, Scott, I love what you're saying. We need to keep the content mix alive, right? We should be sharing
Exactly.
brand, industry, and personal content, but I will tell you, seeing a lot of customers use these posts, especially those top 2 articles, I can tell you for a fact that when you share these out, your audience is noticing them. Not only does the data reflect that, but we're hearing customer stories that like somebody just got reached out to about the 401k. Hey, I need to talk about my 401k. I saw you share this article. I'd love to chat with you further. You know, it's helping people start conversations with their audiences. Same with that article on the right about repairs when buying a home. I mean, these are things that you're educating your audience on. So if you're an MLO, mortgage loan officer, and you're sharing like this article about budget and maintenance and everything, people are going to start taking notice and see you as kind of like that expert to talk to. So love this. I love these articles. Another piece that I want to give a shout out to is just a best practice on all of these industry articles that we're going to talk about. We've seen a lot of success in people finding these articles in their collections. And again, we're going to show you how to find them here in a little bit, but they add their own personal spin on the lead-in language. So those examples on the right there, people might like ask a question or try to get more attention just to kind of put their own personal spin, make it more human. So keep that in mind as we're going through these industry examples. That's another way you can get more engagement on these articles as well. All right, our next one, mortgage and real estate on the next slide. I'm not surprised, again, the mortgage industry has been a huge topic of conversation. Scott, what's going on here?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that stood out to us here was the growth in diversity, and not just a small growth. We're not talking about that 10% growth, but 27% growth in diversity of content in real estate, 38, almost 40% growth in the diversity of mortgage content. What this really starts showing is the differing perspectives, the differing needs, all of the various questions that were arising in the second quarter around the real estate market, around mortgage, where people were looking for various perspectives in not only what they wanted to learn about their own current situation or what their decision making should be, but just to have an idea of what the heck is going on in this space right now. And so, again, probably not surprising when you just looked at the anecdotal, what people were feeling, but it's really interesting to see the number also get bumped up. And the other interesting piece of this that I think relates to the diversity was that we actually saw a decrease in the average number of clicks per article. So people weren't overly engaging with each article by itself, but when you looked at the overall amount of content that was being shared in that content mix, people wanted all of these different perspectives and different data points maybe that they were gleaning from each article and bringing that together into helping them make a decision. So whereas on the financial wellness side, which I think toes the line between industry content and lifestyle content, this is obviously industry driven thought leadership type content. And it also shows that we can't just put one article out there and say, well, I've checked that box. We have to keep showcasing, particularly in these fast moving environments that everyone on this call knows about, but following that up with interesting insights and perspectives as they're hitting the wires.
Keep showcasing, stay top of mind. Love
You got
that.
it.
Tiffany, I'm curious to hear from your perspective, because I know this definitely aligns with trends at BOK. You guys definitely share a lot of mortgage, a lot of real estate. How does BOK approach this type of content?
Well, you know, with the housing market being the way it's been, there's definitely been no shortage of content on these topics for sure. But our regional admins, they do a great job of pulling the articles that really like align with our bank values and initiatives and share the ones they believe, you know, the consumers and realtor partners in their market should be aware of or would want to know about. Just having those custom localized content has definitely engaged our teams more. because it gives them more control over deciding what gets shared to their accounts for their specific markets. You know, they know what's going on in their markets the best, and they can decide what makes the most sense. But in another point to mention there is it kind of gives it like a personalized feel for them in a way, because it showcases them as an expert, not only just in the mortgage industry, but also in their local market, you know, and it shows their followers that they really are in the know on what's going on, and they can come to them for like what I would say is the latest and greatest happenings in their area.
Yes.
And then of course we have the mortgage focused folder for more educational topics that you guys had mentioned, you know, like things to do when you're buying or selling a home, or how to maintain your home, that kind of stuff. And then for realtor partners, I've seen a lot of articles on just tips and tricks to make their job a little bit easier. Our team really seems to love sharing that with their business partners.
Yeah. And I think you hit the nail on the head, right? That's really what sharing content is all about. It's so important to stand out as a thought leader, and your regional managers are really helping your LOs do that. And I mean, that's not something everybody does, leveraging regional teams to help determine what content is going to be the most impactful for them, and, you know, really helping to post and supplement those LOs feeds so that they can drill down deeper into their regions. It's really cool what BOK is doing with their regional approach. We're going to talk a little bit more about how they set up those custom folders, so they are able to take the regional approach. But let's talk about banking content a little bit further before we get into that.
Yeah, and this one was interesting, especially when you put the slides in this order, right? When we looked at kind of the mortgage and real estate side, where we saw a decrease in the number of clicks per article, if you looked at it on just a per article basis, but a huge jump in the diversity, kind of showing people are coming at it with different current situations, had different questions, different perspectives that they wanted to get answered. The banking category was almost the inverse of that. So we saw a significant increase in clicks per article shared, but an actual decrease in the variation of articles that were selected or chosen or distributed. And when we look further at the data itself, it was very interesting as it relates to the quarter, as there was a certain thread that tended to show up almost all the time in articles that were shared that were getting engagement. And it was the lovely word debt. Like almost all of the banking content that we saw, and I think why we saw such an increase in the clicks per article, most of those were focused on education around how to approach debt, how to refinance, how to pay down debt, how to be more efficient from a budgeting standpoint. And you can even see in the examples here of the top two articles that were getting engagement, both of those are focusing on the debt element of the balance sheet rather than the revenue side or the asset side of the personal balance sheet or the small business balance sheet. So, and I think that aligns with a lot of the conversations that were going on over that quarter as well.
Yeah, I mean, who doesn't want to reduce debt?
Exactly. Who doesn't have it, unfortunately, at this point.
Right. Very interesting. Well, those are the three main highlights, but I'm going to take us to the next slide because there's a lot of good data points here. We realize no matter what the content is, financial content in general is increasing because people want to know what's going on. You know, Gen Z, for example, they're going to social media to learn more about what's going on in the world. They're not going to the news as much. They're using social media to learn. And it's becoming more of a source of truth for everyone. People are coming to social media to learn. It's really important for you to be out there, be top of mind, educate, and connect with people via content. So while financial wellness, those top three, right? Financial wellness, mortgage, and real estate content and banking content are really trending and being shared a lot, there's a lot of other content that you can connect with. So I'm going to hand it over to Scott to talk about some other trends happening.
Yes, so content mix coming back into the conversation. So these three thematic areas were very focused on the industry thought leadership content. And obviously the curated element of industry and thought leadership content still certainly want to, and again, with Tiffany on the call, BOK does a great job of infusing original perspectives and kind of adding context to those through third-party content. The other element of the content mix that we talk a lot about is that lifestyle perspective. So we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about a couple themes as it relates to lifestyle. So the diversity and lifestyle content as well is probably our fourth theme that we had to leave on the cutting room floor when we put the deck together. That diversity increased about 25% over quarter as well. So we are continually seeing value in that element of the content mix. Specifically, if we dig into kind of the health and wellness content perspective, we're still seeing significant traction in that area as well. The growth in the financial wellness side, I think, actually pulled a little bit of the tide away from the general health and wellness content as those two started to come together. So that financial literacy approach to financial perspective, I think it does tend to outperform, but shouldn't eclipse general health and wellness content. And the other element, which is probably no surprise to everyone, back in Q4, we and Denim Social jointly announced a new standard collection called Holiday, which, as you would expect, isn't overly enticing in the months of April, May, and June. And so therefore, the holiday content didn't perform quite as well with the holiday information that would be available over that quarter than it did in Q1. And I expect will start to show its performance again as we head toward the end of the year.
Yeah, people are not so focused on those New Year's resolutions, huh?
Yeah, there you go.
Tiffany, you guys do focus a lot on mortgage and real estate, but can you talk a little bit more about the types of articles outside of mortgage and real estate that your teams tend to gravitate to?
Yeah, we really kind of like to add in more financial related articles. Like you mentioned, retirement planning, that's really popular. The importance of estate planning, creating a will, the process for doing that, that's another one I've seen. We tend to stick to topics that are more banking service related, that kind of tie back to our bank as a whole. But we also do like to add in some other topics as well, just to add some variety. So it's not always just mortgage, or real estate. And that seems to really resonate very well with our audience too. And I will say we do kind of stay away from the health and wellness ones. I feel like when people follow our pages, they kind of get in their head what they expect to see our mortgage bankers sharing, and those topics just don't seem to do as well for us. But we're open to it if we come across one that the team really likes. But otherwise, it's mostly just financial, mortgage, or real estate related.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing. Scott, we also pulled in some of the top sources. What are we seeing the most resonate, or what publishers resonate the most with our audiences?
Yeah, and I think you can see a couple on the screen here, but I did want to talk about the fact that it's not a Pareto principle that we're seeing as well. So there's a huge diversity of publications that are being successful amongst the Denim Social customer base. So it's not, certainly wouldn't want anyone to take the slide, and I think Tiffany probably can relate to this, right? And say, okay, team, we're only sharing from these 5 publishers from now on, and we're only sharing financial wellness content. That is not what we're trying to say as it relates to this presentation. But what we're seeing, obviously, and I think Tiffany has been alluding to this, is that how do we position our MLOs or business bankers or personal bankers in a position as being a trusted resource, not only for their own content that they're sharing, but also everything else that they're sharing, and that they can do that in an authentic and organic way. And so one of the things that you would then see are publishers that probably this group trusts and enjoys reading and would read even if they didn't have to, elevate them to the top. They're the ones who we want to see talking about these thematic areas. And so this is a bit of a touchstone for us to know that the content that's being provided is aligning not just topically but from a publication perspective as well. And so that they're able to truly curate, pull from the variety of publications, see what's going to resonate best with their audience, where they can, as you had mentioned, share a little bit of their own perspective as to why they're giving this article to their audience.
Right.
Spark a conversation from there.
Yeah, totally. Scott, I know you have an opinion on this, and Tiffany, you do as well. So I wanted to ask a commonly asked question. There's a lot of people out there that might not like posting articles with the mention of other companies, like mortgage companies or other insurance companies. How do we approach this, Scott?
It's a really good question. It's one that we hear a lot, right? And I think there's a difference between, there's three different, one, the other competitor, let's say, is mentioned in the article as this is the best place to go, right? Or they're amazing and you should go there. Probably not in that case, an article we probably would not choose to share, likely because we want to be authentic and organic. And that statement may not be one that you believe, because obviously you're working for a competitor. So why would we share something that we don't believe is true?
Yes.
The other element is if I am quoting, or the organization is quoting someone who's from a competitor, but it is a good quote and it's true and it's real, I may still choose to share that article because it was a good quote. It is something that I want my audience to learn and understand. And I may still choose to distribute that article. And that's going to be depending on the quote, depending on if you think you have someone who's equally great at giving that type of a statement. Maybe it's not an article you share, but maybe that's a journalist that you reach out to and say, hey, next time, why don't you call us? So you can use it certainly in that regard as well.
Good idea.
The third element where we would recommend almost always leaning to sharing the content is if the article is a great article, but when you opened it up, you saw a display advertisement for a competitor. And there's a couple reasons for that. I think all of your prospective or current clients recognize that you're not the only place where they can get a loan or a mortgage or open an account or buy their next house. And so if we use that as an exclusionary criteria, the amount of content that we can share in a kind of authentic, organic way becomes increasingly small. The other element is that we all know those display advertisements may not be the same for you, Taylor, as they are for me. It depends on browsing history, what we were looking at last. So if you were just researching your competitors and then go to that article, the fact that you see a competitor's ad may be truly just related to your past browsing history. So in that case, we recommend trying not to get wrapped around the axle of, oh my gosh, they're going to recognize that there's somebody else that they could go to. It's a very different sentiment than the article itself saying this is the place you should go. Totally. Not your business.
Yeah, usually I'm retargeted with like a pair of shoes or something.
Right.
Definitely. Tiffany, how do you guys approach that? What's your strategy when it comes to what Scott was just talking about?
Well, everything Scott said is exactly how we approach it. The articles that have a display ad on them with other competitors, we know we're not the only mortgage company out there. But we hope that the reader would still come back to us or the mortgage bankers who shared that article. So we're not as concerned about still sharing those if it's great content. Now, like Scott said, if the article itself mentions a competitor, like, go see ABC Mortgage, they've got really great rates, or that's who we recommend, we're probably not going to share those, just not a best practice. But yeah, I think Scott hit the nail on the head with how we approach that.
Awesome. And then as far as BOK goes, what publishers are you guys loving right now? What do you lean into the most?
I've seen the team using a lot of articles from CNBC and Forbes for those more like industry-wide topics, like what's going on in the housing industry as a whole. But then they also use a lot of local publications so that they get that local content. What's going on in my market? What new businesses are coming to town? What's the housing industry doing here locally? So that's really popular with the team too.
Awesome. You guys also of course, we're talking about how they leverage the custom folders. They're also able to stream in your blog or your own publishing site.
Yeah, we have a brand journalism site. Our brand journalism team, they create lots of great content out there on a wide range of topics, all from different groups here at BOK Financial, you know, and they'll pull in experts from different areas in our bank. And so that also gives our team some content to share as well. That's our own. Yeah.
Yes, great approach. Okay, cool. Yeah, so we're going to talk a little bit more about that kind of setup here in a second, but quick call out going back to kind of the call out of competitors referenced in articles. When you have custom content with Denim Social and UpContent, you have the option to add a banner to your articles that float along with the reader. So if that's something you're concerned about, if you want to keep your customer or your kind of brand awareness there while the customer or the audience member is reading the article, there is that option, which we'll show you here in a few minutes. So we're going to go to the next slide here, and we're going to talk about how Denim Social and UpContent really work together to stream in that content. So as you may or may not know, industry content lives within the UpContent folder under the collections in your content library. And all customers that have Denim Social, they can subscribe to these general folders, and they're all different topics. Like Scott mentioned, there's like health and wellness, lifestyle, industry, etc. And they're all basically topics that our customers across this fin space use. Let's see here. So I'm gonna have you play that video. So every day, once you click into there, the most popular articles from the internet get streamed in directly to each of the folders. And Denim Social creates posts out of those articles. So all you really have to do is click on it and save them to your content library if you're an admin, or schedule directly to your feeds. So after you click add to library, the post is going to show up in the compose screen. And of course, you can put your own personal spin on it, adding emojis, etc. And if you're an admin, you can save it to your content library so that your producers can use it. It's really important to save a lot of industry articles for your producers to leverage and power their social selling strategy. The post will go through the regular approval process. And then again, if you're an admin and your producers are going to the content library, they're going to see that those posts go into the folder, and they can go in and post those to their page. Or if you're an admin, of course, you can go ahead and post it to your groups pages, which is what we're doing there on the screen. So awesome, easy to use. Now I'm going to show you a custom content folder example. So if you have custom content, you get to tweak your folders and the type of content that goes into them. So here we have this Hold House folder. And if we click into the article, you see that little banner up at the top right. So you can add that banner that's floating, like I said, and you'll see as I'm scrolling, it's floating along with me. But not only does it float, you can click on it and it will direct to any URL you want. So each custom folder that you have, you can set up a different banner with a different URL that you're directing your audience to. So super awesome, super, I guess, exclusive, cool integration. And just like all the other posts, you can just add it to your library or schedule it to your feeds. So I love this. It's so easy to use. And it really makes it easy for you to schedule out a lot of industry posts. As I mentioned before, all Denim Social's customers have access to these collections that stream content into your platform. But you have to subscribe to them, and I'll show you here in a little bit where that shows up under manage content collections. So again, you guys can come in here if you're an admin, if you have those permissions. A lot of producers won't have these, the access to this. Your admins will do it for you, but you can come in and select the folders that you want to subscribe to. This is also where your custom folders would show up if you have those built. So you can see here, I'm just clicking around, saving different ones that I want. And you can unsubscribe or subscribe to any at any time. So I think she's probably going to keep moving through the video, but Tiffany, just a question for you. I know you have these general folders in your instance, and you also have custom folders. What was the process like for you getting your custom folders set up?
You know, the process is really straightforward. We got a few representatives from each of our markets on a call together with Denim Social to walk through the questionnaire. And we just, went through the topics that the mortgage bankers came up with that they want to share with their followers. Like I said before, not only consumers, but their realtor business partners. And then we also asked them, well, what top publications do you guys like to read? And we kind of pulled all that into a brainstorming session and came up with a list. And then Denim and UpContent, you guys worked your magic and, started pulling in the content that fit that criteria that they were looking for. And then you also, of course, helped us set up our folder with our brand journalism too. So all those articles that our Brand Joe team comes up with, those all automatically flow in as well, which is fantastic.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I believe, Scott, that Content uses RSS feeds to set up those folders that pull in specific like blog articles from companies. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah. So that's a great point that Tiffany raised there. So there's two ways to approach it. And I think BOK has done a great job of approaching it in both directions. One is just topical, right? What do I want to find content about? That tends to reign supreme, particularly in those localized focus areas. So I want lifestyle Pittsburgh content, or I want Pittsburgh real estate content. And it could come from a myriad of different publications. I don't want every Post-Gazette article to flow into my library. I just want the real estate focused one. So that's more of a criteria driven library or a folder. And then you also do have I want everything from the statement, our own insights to also flow in. And in that case, it's truly everything that I want to have flow in. There's no criteria needed. We can make that happen as well, all coming into the same place, and we could even blend them together. So what's really exciting for our team about the relationship that we have with Denim is that magic word that Tiffany was talking about, where there isn't a lot of heavy lifting that's required on the customer's perspective. It's really exciting to see what comes out of those brainstorming sessions. And then our teams are the ones that will do all that work to figure out how to balance everything so that you have exactly what you need. And then feedback loops are always welcome of ways to kind of tweak and hone and continue to improve or add or remove. But you as the kind of user of Denim Social can do that without necessarily having to worry about the work that's required to make those changes, which is absolutely fantastic.
Mm-hmm. I love that too, Scott. The work required, it is magic, but it's also nice to be able to work back and forth with our clients and our customers. And Tiffany, we work really closely on making sure that your folders evolve and stay up to date with what they need to be. So maybe can you talk a little bit about how you approach staying updated on what your regional managers like to post and how we tweak that within the folders?
Yeah, I periodically will check in with my regional teams and just ask them, are you getting enough variety? Have you come across any topics maybe in another publication that we missed in the original brainstorm session that you think would be good to add? And they have, and they've come up with ideas. And so, we've went back and forth and we've added publications. We've removed some that maybe just weren't working out as well as we had hoped. And so we've made those tweaks. It's definitely a bit of a trial and error in the beginning, especially if you've never done this before, right? Just figuring out like what works best for you and your team. But it's absolutely a super easy process to make those tweaks as you go. Yeah.
And I love how it's empowering your regional admins. You can help them get what they need and really empower them to post and set up their LOs for success. Awesome. Thanks for all the insight. I love all of this. If you do have more questions about those custom content folders, Make sure you, if you're a current customer, talk to your CSM. Like I said earlier, if you're a producer and you haven't seen these folders before, it's likely because your admin manages it all for you, which you are very lucky. If you have seen these folders, you're also lucky because you have access to the folders and you get to dig through all the awesome content. Everybody's setup is a little bit different. But if you are curious about this custom folder specifically and the banner that comes with it and the localized content, make sure you talk to your CSM about how to get that set up. I haven't seen any. Oh, I have one question come through. Can you share insights? I'm going to ask Scott about this. Can you share any insights on CTA banner clicks and performance?
Yeah, so great question, Brian. And I think, unfortunately, I'm going to give a little bit of the consulting answer to that. So the performance is going to depend on what the CTA is asking. So if you're going to think about more of a general banner that you can put onto any article, any type, I just want it on everything. On average, we see kind of 3 to 5% conversion rate, meaning people will see the banner, click on the banner, and go to the destination URL that you've specified. Where we see increases in that conversion rate is if we're going to be able to make a kind of mortgage-focused banner that's only on mortgage content going to a mortgage-focused page, which may be different than financial wellness content that's going to a financial wellness page. This also folds into that magic conversation where you don't have to set all of this up. The request from the Denim team to you would be, can you provide a 728 by 90 pixel image file, which you may already have if you're doing current display campaigns. And then which folder do you want it to apply to? And where do you want it to go? And then just like with the creation of the content, all of that orchestration would be set up, and then metrics certainly would be brought back to you, just like they would be for custom folders, so that those can now both be part of the continued enhancement, improvement, adjustment process that Tiffany was mentioning.
Awesome answer. Scott, another question. Can you just talk about, in general, what is like how do the folders pull into the collections, or how do the folders pull content? What is the kind of criteria?
Yeah, it's a great question. So most of the folders are going to be based upon those keywords, the output of the brainstorming session that Tiffany was mentioning. And we try to approach that like a wish list, as a regional admin, I would like to have content for my team that's about X, Y, and Z things. We have, as UpContent, our focus is purely on content curation. So we have our own crawler, our own index. We scour about a little over 50,000 articles on a daily basis. We find obviously the small subset of those that match those criteria. And then we do a number of other scoring approaches to determine which articles are going to be a best fit for your specific use case, based upon how relevant they are to your topic, how interesting they are to read, and more enhancements to that coming soon, particularly around how similar is this article to past articles that have worked for you, to rescore it in that realm as well. All of that is done on your behalf. You do have the opportunity, as Tiffany was mentioning, to either say, these are the only publishers that I'm comfortable with seeing content from, but I still want them to match my criteria. Or what's more common is, even if this publication matches my criteria, it's not a good fit for our team. We don't want to see content from that publication. So you have very granular control of what's made available. And then, as Taylor was mentioning, you still have that opportunity as a content admin to do a final approval, add some of that firm or bank specific perspective to that article when you make it available to the team, or, in our recommendation, help to empower the team to add their perspective to that, maybe with a prompt text, so that they know what to say and really speak to their specific audience.
That's great. Scott, would you be able to provide some insight on just the general folders as well? So the general folders that we make available to everyone, even if they don't have custom content, maybe the timing on those, or kind of like the criteria for
Yeah.
those as well?
And I know that our ears are always open for suggestions on that. Knowing that these are folders that are going to be available to everyone in Denim Social, and it's only the data from those folders that you saw on the other slides. So this was everything that you saw, every kind of category that you saw is a standard folder, which means that if you're a Denim Social customer, bam, you have access to it. Content is updated twice a day in each of those folders, or at least looked at twice a day to see if there's anything new that's worthy of being recommended into those folders. And those folders, I think there's nearly 20 now. Taylor, maybe correct me if I'm wrong on that, but there's a lot of options there now, cuts across mortgage and real estate. There certainly is financial wellness coming through, articles about banking, health and wellness. So hopefully enough to really help you feel or fuel that content mix. And then again, if you have specific areas, specific regions or geographies that you want to hone in on, that's where the custom folders would focus upon. Standard folders are created exactly the same way, except for it may not be your specific wish list. It's kind of the aggregation of everyone's interests, of which we'd love to have yours included to make sure we're addressing them inside of those folders.
Awesome. Thanks, Scott. Is there any other questions that are coming through? Let's look. Yes.
Banners to the user sharing the article. So I can jump on Brian's question there.
Cool.
And the question is there a way to tie the banners to the user sharing the article so they would be able to retain any potential leads? Awesome, awesome, awesome question. We would want to connect with you specifically in terms of how you'd want to capture that information from the landing page perspective. So we do have customers where they're using URL variables to take that in. So when maybe I'm sending everyone to the same landing page, but the fact that it's coming from Taylor that has a specific URL variable versus coming from me. And so when that form is completed, we know who it was completed by with the information, and we know how they got there through the URL variable. So there is an opportunity to accomplish that. There's some, again, exploration that we're going to need to do to figure out your current setup, so you don't have to kind of stand up something entirely new. But it's definitely a conversation that's worth having between yourself and your CSM on the Denim side, and certainly would be happy to join in that discussion as well and see what we can work out together.
Yes, and I did see another question out there about where to find these things in Denim Social. So hopefully by now, like Scott said, we've answered that question. But if you do have further questions on where to find this content, again, feel free to reach out to your CSM, or we'll be sending this recording out again so you can reference how we got there when we showed that slide with the video recording.